It was the year 1786. Winter had settled deep over England, wrapping the valleys and rivers in a thick silver fog. The small town of Ashburn slept in quiet darkness. Its streets, made of old cobblestones, shimmered faintly under the glow of a few distant oil lamps. Inside, a humble wooden workshop at the edge of the town, a candle flickered against the chill. The walls were lined with iron tools, wooden gears, and sketches pinned with rusted nails, blueprints of things that did not yet exist. At the center of that silent room sat Thomas Avery, a man whose tired eyes had not known sleep for many nights. Thomas was a mechanic by trade, by heart. Where others saw limits, he saw questions. And tonight, he was facing one that might change the course of time itself. Could steam, the invisible breath of boiling water, be turned into power? He wiped his hands on a cloth, leaving dark stains of soot. His breath was visible in the cold air. Before him rested a machine made of brass and iron, a strange structure of pistons, valves, and wheels, inspired by the designs of James Watt, the great Scottish inventor who had improved the steam engine just a few years earlier. Thomas had studied Watt's ideas in secret. He had borrowed books, taken notes, and built his own smaller version, not to rival him, but to understand him. He wanted to see, with his own eyes, how fire could give life to metal. He leaned forward and opened the furnace hatch. A small flame danced inside. The water within the chamber began to tremble, tiny bubbles forming at the surface. The sound was faint at first, a sigh. Then came the hiss of pressure, low and steady. Thomas turned a valve slowly. A stream of white vapor rose, curling into the air like breath on a winter morning. He stepped back, heart pounding, as the great wheel attached to the piston moved slightly, then stopped. He waited. Silence. Then it moved again. The motion was fragile, hesitant, like a child taking its first steps. But it was motion nonetheless, powered by nothing but water and heat. Thomas exhaled shakily. His hands trembled as he whispered, "It's alive." The candlelight danced across the brass surface, painting warm reflections across the walls. The smell of oil and smoke filled the workshop. The rhythm grew, slow, deliberate, mechanical. The wheel turned again, then faster, stronger, until the whole room seemed to breathe with it. Outside, snow began to fall softly over the rooftops. The rest of Ashburn remained asleep, unaware that in this quiet hour, the Industrial Revolution had taken one more breath forward. Thomas stepped closer, mesmerized. He knew he had not invented this. The genius belonged to men like James Watt and Thomas Newcomen before him. But tonight, in this small workshop, he understood it. He sat on a wooden stool, staring at the turning wheel. The gentle clatter of gears and the hiss of steam became almost musical. It was not a roar of power. It was a lullaby of invention. He thought of the future ships that might cross oceans without sails, wagons that could travel without horses, machines that could build other machines. He smiled faintly, imagining the generations that would come, never knowing the silence of a world before motion. Hours passed. The candle burned low, its wax pooling on the table. Thomas finally turned the valve shut. The wheel slowed, groaned, and came to a rest. Steam drifted lazily through the air, like a ghost returning to sleep. He removed his gloves and placed them beside the blueprints. Outside, the church bell tolled faintly, announcing dawn. Thomas opened the window. Cold air rushed in, carrying with it the scent of rain and distant chimneys. The first light of morning touched his face. He watched as a thin plume of vapor rose from his workshop and vanished into the brightening sky. He whispered softly to himself, "One day, the whole world will move like this." And indeed, it would. Within decades, great engines would cross continents, steamships would carry people across oceans, and factories would hum with endless motion. Only one man bore witness to that first whisper, the whisper of steam that marked the dawn of a new world. The candle went out. The workshop fell silent, but the sound of progress, once awakened, would never fade again. The candle in Thomas Avery's workshop had long burned out. Decades had passed since that quiet night in Ashburn, and the world he once dreamed of had come alive. The hiss of steam that began in small workshops now thundered across nations in locomotives, in ships, in great iron factories that never truly slept. But with every revolution of the wheel, mankind began to crave something more than motion. The world had learned to move. It longed to see. It was the late 1870s. In a modest brick house on the outskirts of Menlo Park, New Jersey, a young woman named Eleanor Finch sat by her window, sewing by the dim light of a gas lamp. Outside, the streets were dark, except for a few lanterns swaying in the wind. The world still lived in shadow once the sun disappeared. But not far from Eleanor's home, inside a small laboratory that smelled of copper, oil, and ozone, another man worked tirelessly. His name was Thomas Alva Edison. For weeks, he and his team had been experimenting with glass bulbs, filaments, and electricity, searching for a light that would not die after a few minutes. That evening, as the sun sank behind the trees, a faint glow began to bloom in Edison's lab. At first, it was no brighter than a candle flame, but it did not flicker. It held steady, quiet, warm, alive. Edison watched in silence, his eyes reflecting the light that his own hands had summoned. The men around him stared, breathless. One of them whispered, "It's holding." For the first time in history, darkness had a rival. The news spread through the small town like wildfire. People gathered outside his workshop, peering through the windows, trying to catch a glimpse of the strange new light that burned without smoke or flame. Among them was Eleanor Finch. She had walked for nearly an hour, carrying her lantern to see the wonder everyone was talking about. When she saw the glass bulb glowing inside the lab, she forgot to breathe. It was gentle and golden, not harsh like gas, not trembling like fire, calm, perfect, endless. That night, she returned home and placed her lantern on the windowsill, just as she always did. But as she sat there in the quiet, she thought of that small, steady light she had seen, the one that did not need oil, did not burn the air, did not fade with time. And for the first time, she imagined a world where every home might glow after sunset. Weeks later, electric wires began to spread across Menlo Park. By 1880, the first small neighborhoods were lit by Edison's incandescent lamps. Eleanor stood at her window again, watching as her own house filled with light for the first time. It was soft, silent, pure, a glow that felt alive. She thought of how far the world had come. From the whisper of steam to this whisper of light. From motion to illumination. From Thomas Avery's trembling wheel to Thomas Edison's glowing bulb. One dream passing quietly into another. The nights of the world would never be the same again. In distant cities, inventors like Joseph Swan in England and Hiram Maxim in America were creating their own versions of the same idea. The age of electric light had truly begun. Soon, factories worked day and night. Homes stayed awake longer, and human life stretched further into the dark. But for Eleanor, it was something simpler. Every evening, she would still sit by her window, sewing quietly. And when she looked up, she no longer saw darkness pressing against the glass. Instead, she saw a faint golden reflection, the proof that mankind had found a way to turn night into day. Outside, snow began to fall gently over the glowing streets. The lamps along the road shimmered like a trail of stars brought down to earth. The world that once lived by candles now glowed with its own kind of sunrise. In that soft light, somewhere between dream and invention, humanity had crossed another invisible line. From survival to understanding, from the shadow of fear to the warmth of discovery. And as Eleanor closed her eyes, that night, the electric hum filled the air, a sound almost as soft as breath. The new heartbeat of the modern world. The glow from Menlo Park had traveled far and wide. Across the Atlantic, in the libraries and lecture halls of Boston and London, minds were alive with curiosity. Electric light had become more than a tool. It was a signal that humanity could harness forces invisible to the naked eye. In a quiet study in Cambridge, Massachusetts, a man named Professor Grant prepared for an experiment that had never been attempted before. His table was covered with wires, glass bulbs, and copper plates. A small telegraph machine sat in the corner, its keys waiting to be pressed, sending messages across the room like invisible footsteps. Professor Grant was an American scientist with a restless mind. He had spent years studying the ways that electricity could carry information. Not just light, not just power, but thought itself. Tonight, he was ready to try something extraordinary. He closed the door of his study and dimmed the gas lamps. In the silence, only the soft scratch of his pen and the hum of early electrical circuits could be heard. He set up 2 small machines at opposite ends of the room. A wire connected them, simple yet precise, and a small metal key stood between them, trembling slightly. He adjusted the voltage, measured the current, and whispered to himself, "This will speak the language of the future." Then he pressed the key. A faint click echoed from the other machine. He tried again. Click, click, click. Slowly, rhythmically, a pattern emerged. It was the first step toward transmitting messages over a distance using electricity, the beginning of telegraphy, the first taste of instantaneous communication. Outside, snow covered the streets of Cambridge. The world slept unaware of the small sparks leaping from one copper plate to another. But inside Professor Grant's study, the air vibrated with possibility. He scribbled notes furiously, recording the clicks and pauses, imagining a time when people could send words across cities, across countries, across oceans. The human mind could now reach farther than legs or horses could ever carry it. Hours passed. The machines hummed, sending faint messages from one end of the room to the other. Professor Grant paused to take a deep breath. The world was moving faster now, faster than anyone realized. Steam had carried mankind forward. Electricity had illuminated their nights. Now, communication itself was about to leap into motion. He leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. In his mind's eye, he saw a network of wires stretching across continents, carrying thoughts and ideas at the speed of lightning. He imagined newspapers being transmitted instantly, merchants sending orders across oceans, families sharing news without delay. The machines ticked softly, like the pulse of a sleeping city. Every click, every spark was a small triumph over distance, a quiet revolution in how humans would connect. As dawn approached, the first light touched the snow-covered roofs outside. Professor Grant carefully disconnected the wires and wrote his final note for the night. "This is only the beginning," he whispered. "One day, words will travel faster than horses, faster than the wind. One day, no one will be truly out of reach." He gazed out the window at the soft morning glow. Steam and electricity, motion and light had already begun to weave the world into something new. The experiments of one night, one mind, had opened the door to a future where distance was no longer a barrier, where information could flow like water, invisible and unstoppable. And in that quiet Cambridge study, as the machines fell silent, Professor Grant smiled. He had not yet seen the vast networks of telegraph lines that would span continents, nor the electrical marvels of the decades to come. But tonight, he had spoken the language of the future, and the world, unknowingly, was listening. The world had changed quietly over decades. Steam engines roared across continents, carrying people and goods faster than horses ever could. Electric light illuminated streets and homes, and messages now traveled along wires in clicks and sparks that echoed like invisible footsteps. Amid this changing world, a young man named William Hart prepared for a journey that would take him across lands he had only read about in books. He was not a scientist, nor an inventor, but a traveler, a dreamer, and a witness to the unfolding of progress. William packed his small leather satchel carefully. Maps lined the walls of his study, tracing railways that crossed mountains and rivers. He fastened his coat against a winter chill, and, with a lantern in hand, stepped out into the snow-laden streets. The train station was alive with motion. Steam hissed, whistles blew, and engines shuddered as if waking from a long dream. Passengers moved with anticipation and wonder, their faces illuminated by electric lamps that had only recently begun to light the night. William boarded the train bound for New York, the locomotive pulling its heavy cars with a rhythm that seemed almost alive. He watched as small towns and fields slipped past the window, the world moving faster than it ever had before. The engine's hiss reminded him of Thomas Avery's first machine in Ashburn, now decades past, but never forgotten. In New York, he marveled at the city's streets lined with gas lamps and newly installed electric lights. Factories hummed with endless activity, their windows glowing even in the dead of night. Steamships in the harbor carried goods and passengers across oceans, connecting continents in ways his grandparents could not imagine. William met merchants and engineers, each sharing stories of invention and adventure. He learned of Edison's incandescent lamps, of the networks of telegraph lines that spanned the world, and of the vast railways that now carried people across vast distances in hours instead of days. Everywhere he went, he witnessed the quiet miracles of human ingenuity. A child reading under an electric lamp. At night, a message sent instantly across the ocean. A train arriving precisely on time. Each small wonder was part of a larger, invisible thread that tied the world together. On the journey to Boston, he paused to watch the sunrise over a frozen river. Steam rose from the train engine in gentle clouds, curling into the crisp morning air. He thought of Thomas Avery's workshop, of the faint whisper of steam that had begun it all, and he realized how far the world had come. But he also knew that this journey was more than observing inventions. It was about understanding how human beings, driven by curiosity and need, had slowly transformed their environment. From fire to steam, from light to telegraph, each step was a story of patience, vision, and courage. William kept a journal, noting every discovery and every sight that inspired him. He wrote about the engineers who built railways across mountains, the electricians who lit entire neighborhoods, and the telegraph operators whose fingers tapped the rhythm of human communication across vast distances. By the time he reached Boston, he had become not just a traveler, but a recorder of human progress. He understood that every invention, every machine, every spark of light was part of a chain, one idea leading to another, each building on the last. As night fell, William Hart looked out over the harbor, the waters reflecting the glow of lamps and factories. The world was awake now, connected by motion, illuminated by light, and informed by knowledge. And somewhere, deep within him, he felt the pulse of all that progress, a heartbeat that began long ago with a single whisper of steam in a small workshop. The world had grown quieter now. The great engines still moved, the wires still whispered, and the lights still burned in every city. But beneath it all, there was a calm, the kind that follows great discovery. In a small London apartment overlooking the River Thames, a man named Arthur Doyle sat by his desk. He was neither an inventor nor a traveler, but a writer, a collector of thoughts. Before him lay a set of old journals, their pages yellowed by time. They belonged to William Hart, the traveler who had seen the century change before his eyes. Arthur turned one of the pages carefully. Ink faded, but words remained alive. Tales of steam engines roaring across plains, of the first electric lamps shining through fog, of Professor Grant's experiments that turned silence into communication. Every entry told the same story, not of machines, but of mankind learning to dream wider. He dipped his pen into ink and began his own entry. Progress, he wrote softly, is not the noise of engines or the hum of wires. It is the quiet moment when humanity looks at what it has built and dares to build again. He paused, listening to the city outside. Electric lamps glowed in every window, small suns in the heart of winter. Arthur smiled faintly. He remembered stories his grandfather once told of a world without light, without motion, without the gentle buzz of life that now filled every corner of London. He realized that each invention, from the whisper of steam to the spark of electricity, had not just changed the world, it had changed the people within it. The river shimmered with reflections of lamplight, trembling softly under the pale dawn. "We have learned to chase the sun," he whispered, "to bring it indoors, to command it, to make night and day our own." Turning back to his journal, he continued to write. Thomas Avery lit the first flame of motion. Eleanor Finch captured light in her window. Professor Grant gave the world a voice, and William Hart carried it across the earth. And now, it is our turn to listen. The words came slowly, like a prayer. Outside, the snow had begun to fall. Silent, endless, covering the city that never truly slept anymore. Arthur watched it from the warmth of his study, the glow of the lamp painting soft gold across his face. Perhaps the next great invention will not be of steel or wire, he wrote. Perhaps it will be of thought, a way for minds to meet, for understanding to travel faster than light itself. He set his pen down and closed the journal gently. The city hummed below him, alive, connected, awake. For the first time, Arthur felt that he was part of something vast, a single thread in the great tapestry of discovery that stretched across generations. He blew out the lamp. For a brief moment, the room returned to darkness, the same darkness from which the world had once begun. Then, as the morning light spilled through the window, he whispered, "The night the world changed never truly ended. It only began."